Welcome responders to another video. Today we are going to talk about how to choose a Layflat host system for wastewater utilities. Now, if you're in the water industry, I just did another video 2 weeks ago on potable water. Be sure to look it up on my YouTube video. Okay, well, let's get started with the video. Let's start with number one. Know your hard pipe system in relation to Layflat hose. What do we mean by this? We're going to give a couple of tips. Know the size of your system, which all you guys probably do. Are you a large hard pipe system? You have many hundreds of thousands of services. Or maybe you're a smaller system. You have less than 10,000 services. I've seen people who overbuy and I've seen people who underbuy. Sometimes people buy so big they can't even fit it in their narrow streets because the trailer is so big. So I've seen that. So these are things you got to think about before. Also, you don't have to match Layflat hose exactly with your hard pipe. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, let's say you have an 8-inch hard pipe system. You don't need to have an 8-inch Layflat hose system always on hand. You'd be fine with 6-inch. Maybe you'll be fine with a bunch of 4s as long as you have enough 4-inch. So it's just something to think about. Also, instead, try to think of one or two different hose systems in relation to Layflat hose. So like if you have 8-inch, try to go 6. If you have something bigger, then try to go one or two sizes below the hard pipe. That's a good rule of thumb. Number two, choose your hose wisely. This is super important, guys, because your trailer is built around the hose. I'll explain that later. Also, know that all hoses are not created equal. I have a great guide. It's right here up on the screen. If you need it, just email me. I can email it to you right away. And it's just a guide and comparison sheet of what is better for the guys out in the field, what is going to handle more. You've got pressure. Some hoses are better with pressure on the long run. So it's something to consider about, especially if you're going to buy a trailer, because you're going to be putting long lengths on there. You want a hose that can handle the pressure, it can handle, that's tested for that. Not all hoses are tested in that way. So this is huge, guys. Make sure you really look at the hoses you're going to buy. Just don't buy whatever's cheapest or whatever someone told you to buy. Number three, why couplings, adapters, reducers matter. This is also another big one. Field detachable are the best for emergency reasons. And I have a pyramid here that I can show you. Also, I can email you this as well. Just let me know. And basically it says field detachable are one of the best for emergency reasons. Now, why is that? Well, they're easily taken apart. You can either very easily install them and uninstall them. And you can do this by hand. You don't need a machine. So those are the best couplings for hoses. Now, the most secure ones are the more permanent ones, like the crimped ones. But if you're in the wastewater business, you don't need high pressure couplings anyways. So this is where being in the wastewater is really cool, because you have a lot more options. So I would definitely go on the field detachable side, just because you can easily uninstall them and install them. If you need to cut the hose, you can cut it to whatever length you need and then reattach them basically out in the field if you would like. So hopefully you don't have to do that, but you can if you need to. Also, another reason why couplings and adapters and reducers matter is that they're not easy to get. You really have to think about this beforehand. Let's say you have an 8-inch Layflat hose and you want to reduce down to a 6-inch hose. You're going to have to think about that before, because reducers are not easy to get. They're made to order. They're not most people don't have those on inventory. Sometimes they do, but I definitely would not risk it. So just make sure, if you want to be able to have that option, make sure that you think about it and you have it on inventory beforehand. I would even go as far to say that it's a little more important than the hose itself, because you can always get the hose, but the specialty couplers, the reducers, the adapters, those are the ones that are a little more hard to get. Number four, choose your trailer. Think of your hose, then the trailer. So you want to be building inside out. For example, if you have a bunch of 8-inch hose and you want to put it on a small trailer, it may not be doable just because of the weight. You have to think about the weight first. And are you just going to put hose on there? What if you want to put other stuff like a toolbox on there? All the weight matters. So you may have to get a larger trailer to fit your needs and fit your desires. Also, maybe you have a smaller system you want to take care of, then you can probably go smaller. There's also medium-sized trailers. So just think about these kind of things beforehand, so you have a good idea of what you think your needs will. Don't worry about the trailer. Worry about the trailer after. Please first think of the hose first. Maybe you need a pump on there. If you need a pump, you're going to have to go big because those weigh quite a bit. Also, accessories. Accessories are a big deal too, because what if you want to do some hard suction cradles, for example? Maybe you have to use some hard suction hose to vacuum out stuff. Also, beacons, traffic lights. Are you going to be working at night? These are all things that may sound like not a big deal, but maybe you're going to want them on your trailer. Number 5, know your risks. Are there any areas in your system that have vulnerabilities? For example, floods. Do you have any key areas that need to de-water? For example, maybe you have an intersection that always gets flooded. Layflat hose is a great way to get liquid from point A to point B. You can divert this water somewhere. Just gives your guys another option out in the field. Also, earthquakes. Cross-reference your earthquake fault lines with your hard pipe. For example, I had one customer who had one pipeline going and feeding 100 homes. So if something happened to that pipeline, if it broke, then he would have a backup system, and he used Layflat hose as that backup system. And this is when Layflat hose becomes very, very valuable, because you have an emergency line. And this is where it's very easy to go to your board and say, hey, look, this is, if something happens, we have a backup system. And that's where the trailer comes in. So this is something that it will buy you time to fix the hard pipe. It'll also provide service immediately once it goes down. Number 6, know your neighbors. This is one that no one thinks about, but it is important. Why is it important? Well, knowing your neighbors is essential when it comes to Layflat hose, because maybe you guys can coordinate on different sizes. For example, let's say you have a small pipe system, but you'd like to have the option to have a bigger Layflat hose. Talk to your neighbor and say, hey, maybe he's bigger. Ask him, maybe, hey, if you buy the larger sizes, I'll buy the smaller sizes. He's going to need smaller sizes sometimes. And that way you can work out some type of mutual aid. Here we have what's called Cal Warn. In other states they have, like for example, Texas, they have Texas Warn. This is where this kind of mutual aid agreements are really good, because you guys can help each other in a state of crisis, a state of an emergency, a state of a disaster, because you can all come together and help each other. And that's what happens in an emergency. The community is going to help you, right? So try to talk to your neighbors and say, look, I'm thinking of buying one of these. Do you have one? Maybe we can diversify to have a whole complete system. And then once you start talking, you'll notice that other of your neighbors are going to start buying it, because they're like, hey, we want to be prepared as well. So I've seen this time and time again. And then after a while, you have this community of Layflat hose users, and they all start to help each other. And it's great to see. So think about that before you buy. Just try to talk to your neighbor and say, hey, do you guys have one of these as well? Okay, now we're at our last one, number 7, a budget. Now everybody likes to talk about this one, the budget. Now the budget is important, and it's really important to know exactly how you're going to get this approved by your board. And I've had customers that they get what they want one year, and then the next year they get the other half. So don't try to get some flexibility. For maybe your board says, hey, we can't afford this year, maybe next year. Maybe ask them, can we afford just part of the system, and then next year you get the rest of the system. I've seen people do that. Also, maybe ask for a grant if you have the time. Maybe a hazard mitigation plan, a state grant. There's all kinds of grants that help out utilities to get better prepared for a disaster or an emergency. So there's consultants that do this. I know many of them who've been doing this. That's all they do, is they help utilities get grants from the state, from the federal, FEMA, whatever entity that is giving grants at the time. Look into this. Maybe your utility has a shot of collecting a grant in some way, and maybe it's better to hire a consultant, because what if they get you hundreds of thousands or even more than that to improve your systems? So it's something to think about. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate you and your time for giving me your ears and listening to this video. So if you could just hit a like or subscribe onto my YouTube video, it helps us so much. Also, we have other social media channels like LinkedIn, Facebook. And if you want these videos directly to your inbox, go ahead and sign in our email sign up on our website. It's only once a month, and it goes right to your inbox. All right, guys, thanks again. And I appreciate you watching.